Welcome to all the horrible things.
Welcome to episode 6. We're cruising along here. We're just cruising along, pumping them out.
We are. We've been consistent. I'm proud of us. I think
life's
we're
hard.
doing it up proper. So what is our subtitle for today's episode?
Oh, man. This is probably one of my favorites. It's we're calling it all the horrible things that sting. Which
That sting.
That's putting it lightly, because today we're talking about weapons used by major horror villains, and
Indeed.
and why they kill,
and why they kill too. Yeah, we're gonna get a little bit into the motive and perhaps why they chose the weapon that they did to wreak havoc on sometimes unsuspecting populace, sometimes very, very suspecting populi.
Those damn teenagers.
But speaking of sting, we are here on the 17th of February dealing with a bit of a little blizzard outside.
Yeah.
It was stinging as I just came home and was getting stung in the face by
not
those
fun.
gnarly flakes.
It's just a roller coaster here in Chicago. Of just it was nice yesterday. Now it's snowing today.
I was kind of channeling Jack Torrance. I kind of felt what he was feeling as he was trudging through the snow with that axe, which we'll talk about
Pulling
later.
your shirt jacket and dealing with the elements.
Well, let's dig into it and talk about how we're going to tackle it.
We're going to do a reverse order.
Exactly. We did it a couple weeks ago where we kind of rank stuff. So we're talking, initially this all kind of stemmed from next week is the new release of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And we were kind of talking about the nature of how these guys slay and how some are just inherently scarier means of destruction than others.
Absolutely.
And I know every time I've gone to a haunted house in the past, the thing I remember viscerally the most is that chainsaw.
They always throw a chainsaw in there at the end. It's terrifying. The sound alone.
I mean, plus you got the smoke coming out of it. We'll get to that a little bit later. Let's start with the weapon we find the least scurry.
Well, that's a tough one.
We each have our own list, so there might be a little bebopping and scotting around, and we can do a little debating.
Yeah, because based on our list here, we have, give or take 11 or 12, because some might be using something similar. We're going to pair those together. My number 10, though, is Chucky. Because
Chucky?
Yeah.
Chucky is my number 10, too, but I have the 11. Okay. But yeah, it's my second to least scary. We were talking about how Chucky ultimately is the weapon of choice himself.
Yes. Inhabited by Charles Lee Ray, the serial killer. And
do we know how Charles Lee Ray killed his victims, or is that left ambiguous?
I think he strangled. I think he stabbed.
He was a strangler.
Yeah. I think he.
Okay.
I think.
Does Chucky have the means to strangle himself? I can't recall if
Chucky
he's
will
ever
use something, say like a piano wire. He could use something to. Yeah, I've seen him do it. Oh yeah, I've seen him.
What would you say he's most associated with, though, Chucky? What
a little knife.
Yeah, usually a knife.
Yeah,
seems like his main means of attack. But he gets creative with things, Chucky. You know?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you
anything and everything is fair game with him.
Yeah, and if you haven't seen the new TV show on USA and I believe Sci-Fi, that kind of pulls the whole Chucky universe into the same series, he's found a number of good ways in this TV show to kill people. So check it out.
Well, that's outstanding. What is his modus operandi? Who's he going after and why in the series?
Well, it's interesting. I think the series is more about him finding somebody to almost that he could use. He's almost not wanting to work on his own anymore, and he gets purchased by a child at a garage sale, and he's trying to manipulate this younger generation to kill.
Interesting.
Yeah,
this kind of gets to when I was thinking about why does Chucky do what he does? Why does he then continue killing? And I think about perhaps Charles Lee Ray himself became a serial killer because of his loss of agency, didn't feel like he was part of the populace. And then you have ultimately Chucky himself as an object controlled by others. And it sounds like in this series, he's dependent on others in order to go ahead and get his murder on.
Yeah, he's trying to also build an army, though. I think it all boils down to the fact that he might be bored and he's looking for new creative ways.
Back up. Build an army of humans or
of Chuck
dolls?
of the good guy doll.
Wait. So is this the soul has been imbued in multiple Chucky dolls?
So
It's multiple Charles Lees?
They have established the fact that he can jump from doll to doll and from human at certain times. I think it depends on the right human, but yeah, he has been able to now jump. So if you destroy this one good guy doll that he was in, he can now jump with it using his voodoo into another doll, so he could just live on forever as long as there's a yeah.
Well, how does the army work though? Can he like split his personality into multiple dolls?
Yes, he can.
Oh my goodness gracious!
Yes, he can.
How would you take him out if you had a little Chucky doll coming at you with classic knife?
Oh, just a drop kick.
What are you doing?
Drop kick.
Just a quick.
Just I'm punting him.
But he feels no pain, right?
So what? It gives you good distance to get the hell out of there.
Distance. You don't think he has the capacity to be throwing that at you, hitting that spine?
Yeah, he probably could. But the thing is, I've seen him, get burned and kind of pummeled and squished. I just don't think there is stopping him. So in this situation,
has he ever been de-stuffed?
No, I don't think we've ever
stuffing out of there.
I don't think we've ever really
What's
seen.
What's he going to do if
stuffing.
He doesn't have any real form?
Well, it's interesting though, because his body isn't traditionally like a stuffed toy. It's more like what we had in the 80s with like it's a combination of plastic and
okay.
Working.
So he's not huggable really. My buddy is not super huggable if he is mostly plastic.
It's funny that you said my buddy because it's good guy. But my buddy was the doll that it was based off of in real life.
Oh, that's right. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're not scared of this. We could both take out Chucky if we had to. We ain't scared. That's no thing. The next one, my bottom of the list one was one we were kind of like debating whether or not we could even consider it a weapon of choice, and that is Samara from The Ring, and ultimately the ingrained images, that video cassette tape. Having that spewed into the brain of those who watch it really kind of is like the death blow before they even die. So it's like that first stab in a way. Granted, it takes the 7 days for Samara to then come out of the TV, and what you suggested that she kind of sucks their soul away.
Yeah, I kind of felt that she had this kind of like presence where she kind of wraps herself around you and like consumes your energy.
Because we do see the corpses, right? And they're kind of mummified in a way, like shriveled.
Yeah, exactly, or petrified. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. But ultimately, her death blow is if you watched it, you're screwed. There's no way out unless you're Naomi Watts and you do some digging.
Correct. Yeah.
Otherwise, there's no way out. That's not. Well, given the political climate of late, it is kind of scary to think how easily people can be manipulated via visuals, and imagery. So in that sense, in real life applications, it's scary. But when we're talking about you and me taking something on, I ain't scared. I ain't going to be manipulated.
Agreed. Yeah. Again, I didn't have it on my list at all. I just really going for like that extension of a weapon here, like an actual physical weapon.
That's fair. This one's kind of more of a metaphorical one.
Yeah,
I definitely get it. I couldn't resist.
Oh, I appreciate it. I like it.
So what's your number 9 then?
My number 9 is the miner from My Bloody Valentine.
Oh, the pickaxe.
Yeah, the pickaxe is always terrified me.
It's pretty scary because ultimately there's 2 weapons there. If you had somebody in front of you and behind you, one swift front sees and back sees, and you got 2 skulls crushed.
Yeah, and not only that, I've never seen a clean one. they're just so dirty and rusty. Think about
who manufactures them anymore. Is it just one of those things that any pickaxe is going to have been made 50 to 60 years ago?
I would imagine if you come across a new pickaxe, it's got some sort of nice coating on it that's bright and all safe, and it's got some sort of spray material on it so it's not as sharp. I don't know. It's not as scary anymore.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say it's not scary anymore, but you still see them in people's sheds and garages, and you're like,
That's
what are they
true.
using that for?
I know. What do you use it for unless you're, a little 10-year-old in the mines,
Exactly.
earning for his fam?
I imagine you could
Uh,
get a hole going. If you needed to, like, if the ground was rough, you could probably break open the ground with the sharp end, and then
I'm going to be honest. I'm not sure I've ever seen a pickaxe in person.
yeah. Like I said, if you do come across one, they're pretty dirty and they just rust over time.
I think the way that they have eluded me my entire life has put them so much higher on my list than yours. They come in at 6 for me, the pickaxe.
Oh, interesting. I think
Just because it's such a bludgeoning thing, is these bludgeoning weapons for me
Yeah.
that really get me, because I really feel like I could survive a couple stabs. You know
See,
what I mean?
I
could
feel a
survive little
complete
fire.
opposite. A complete opposite. I'd rather
Oh.
get punched or hit than stabbed.
I got this big old chrome. It's a real easy target for people that want to, skull crush.
Well, if you've never picked up a pickaxe, it's extremely heavy too. Not extremely heavy, but it's almost like an anchor at the end of a baseball bat. Think of it that way. So yeah.
Why does he pick it? Well, I've only seen My Bloody Valentine 3D back from the aughts.
It just makes
early
sense.
aughts.
It makes sense. That's part of his surrounding. That's he was a miner. Like
Okay.
that.
Right. He's in a mining town,
Mm-hmm.
and this character has mental issues.
Yes, I believe.
So, the digger of metaphor that I am, I can't help but see that he is, once again, a character that's kind of outside of society, loveless, lootless. So perhaps this represents his way of trying to, like, claw back at any sort of connection. He's digging for that which will never be found.
Right. And I believe there was at least in, maybe it's the original, that there was an explosion and people got trapped in the mine.
That sounds very familiar.
Yeah.
That's all was a
So
thread.
maybe there's some sort of redemption there as well.
Too.
I don't know.
I think Chilling Sabrina kind of ripped off some of that too, because I know there was a lot of mine action in that show.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah, that's true.
So let's move on to 8. My 8 is a weapon used by 2 notable big bads.
That's my number 8.
And that's the hook.
Yeah.
A fishing hook, I guess. Well, like a Captain Hook's hook. What is that? A fishing hook? I know certainly when it comes to I Know What You Did Last Summer and Ben Willis, that was a fishing hook, right? He's using that to bring in the big net of fish that's been caught, and then to
and I don't believe Candyman's hook is that. They're similar, but I think his might be more of a.
His is more of a Captain Hook's hook, where it's something he uses as like a artificial hand.
Yeah, to like latch onto things, or like you would
Well,
see
this
like in
is
a
an
butcher.
interesting distinction, because one of them actually has lost his hand.
Yeah.
And the other one is using that hook as a weapon, still having both hands.
Yeah.
Right? The Candyman has lost his hand, and that's why
and
he kills with the
I'm
hook.
thinking of the fisherman. You're right. He doesn't. It's got like a handle on it, and he holds.
It does. It has a wooden handle.
Yeah.
And that's how he's taken out the Felipes of the world.
Yeah.
Which one do you find more intimidating? Who would you rather come across, Candyman or Ben Willis?
Well, the difference being mostly that one has more of a supernatural. Candyman has powers, and the fisherman is just after revenge. I think I'd rather go up against the fisherman because he's just a human.
I think that's probably right. And he was pretty old too. Ben Willis is not a spring chicken.
Right.
I mean, he is a fairly old gentleman. And you're right. I think just the desperate nature of the Candyman. And plus, we're discounting the bees. He has bees on his side too. So hook plus bees. He takes the cake in terms of
plus
where
he's
those two
much more
stand.
menacing. Tony Todd
is much more menacing.
Yeah, the original Candyman. Just like, his voice is fantastic and creepy and powerful, but also he kind of like just look down at you. He's kind of towers over you.
Do you recall how he lost his hand? Because that's escaped me right now. I want to say
I don't remember.
Okay, all right, but it is an appendage lost, and ultimately such a big overarching theme of Candyman is that the disenfranchised African American in Chicago's West Side are then dealing with these privileged white people who go in there saying, "I'm going to take your story from you," sort of.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot working in that department. And then, of course, the hook for the fisherman's obvious. That was his job. And maybe he's an emotional guy. He was left for dead. He's feeling gutted himself.
Yeah. Candyman, after he fell in love with the impregnated white woman, her father sent a lynch mob after him. They cut off his right hand and smeared him with the honeycomb stolen from the apiary.
So his appendage was taken by the white man.
Yes.
So ultimately
Yes.
Okay. All right. This is interesting in itself. And it almost makes it scary because what does he replace it with? His agency, again, has been taken away. His ability to work, his ability to like live a normal life, taken away.
Yeah.
Stolen. The one other thing I wanted to say about the fisherman, Ben Willis, and I know he did last summer, is it makes sense because he kind of baits his victims in a way killers don't. He
Correct.
actually kind of reels them in a little bit with the way he leaves messages on the
like the
mirror
shower scene in I Know What You Did Last Summer.
In the little note he left for, doesn't he leave Ryan Felipe a little note in his locker, all cute?
Yeah, clearly he's not using the hook all the time. He's sets it down to write notes.
He likes to see that bob a little bit before he reels them in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not super scared of a hook. I feel like I'd be able to dodge it, and if he got me,
you really just have to cork it at the end. You just put a cork on it, and you're you're okay.
Here and a cork. So what do you got at number 7?
Number 7, I have Jack Torrance and his axe.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay, I had axe at 5 for me. The axe and the pickaxe, again, are these bludgeoning things that scare the crap out of me.
Yeah.
The axe more so. The axe is way scarier than a pickaxe just because I think it can be wielded with more ease and direction.
Sure.
And accuracy. What makes it scary? Because he takes out how many people, Jack? Is it only the caretaker? How many people does he actually kill in The Shining?
Yeah, actual humans. Yeah, the caretaker. And I think just the fact that he is completely out of control and has lost his mind and he's got an axe makes him just incredibly terrifying. And, I'd rather be like stabbed in this situation than hit with an axe.
100%. That's like the bludgeon plus the blade combo for me. So that's definitely up there.
And I don't think
metaphorically. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say I don't think like in the movies you see someone get hit with an axe and like it takes off a limb or something. Not the case. I think it's a couple swipes, a couple turns at it.
It's way more brutal. It's a horrific way to go.
Correct.
And I think it's interesting that because an axe to grind, if you will. Jack Torrance has an axe to grind, right? There's a lot going on with why this character chooses an axe. Yeah. Ultimately, he is trying to destroy his family too. And I always associate axes with chopping up wood, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, it's like he's using it as an instrument of destruction of his own family, his own sanity, and this
whittling
kid and
away
wife for the kindling to further lunacy.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think that might be a stretch, but that's what I saw.
Well, but
yeah, between Jack Nicholson plus Axe, that's trouble.
Yeah, the scene of him going after that door. It's just imagine if that axe was hitting you instead of the door.
Did Johnny Carson ever respond to that?
I don't know. Probably. He had to.
I'd be curious if he had anything to say about the "Here's Johnny" moment.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Huh. Well, let's move on up, shall we? The next least scary one to me kind of gets back to the hook. It's actually less scary than the hook was to you. It's in Hellraiser, the balls and chains and these instruments of hell, these torturous instruments in Hellraiser. I don't see them being all that frightening for some reason. Because there's not that intimacy there. I feel like if someone is swinging this ball and chain above their head, I'm going to laugh a little bit first and then be already 5 or 6 feet away from them that it's not likely to take me down.
I think it's for me, and that's, definitely on my list, and I'll talk about it some more. But um, to respond to that, I think it's more about, who's wielding it, and I think Pinhead is just so terrifying visually, and the idea of like just tearing the flesh away. I don't know,
Yes, his psionic powers certainly are frightening.
just not the
When we're talking about
weapon.
the actual instruments,
Sure.
it's too medieval for me. It doesn't have that same sort of kapow.
Okay.
But you're right. No, the looks of what is it, Cenobites? Is that what they're called?
Cenobites, yes.
Whew. Yeah, that's some of the scariest looking creatures out there.
Yeah.
And they're just these hellish creatures that bring pain for what reason? It's been a while since I saw that first one.
Well, to
I know.
bring you to hell.
To bring you to hell. Okay. And then there's this weird Pandora's box thing going on in it too. So in a way that could be considered the weapon, because once you start monkeying with that, then you bring on the Cenobites. But that once again is more of like the ingrained images in the ring where it's the bait.
See, I thought that was more terrifying than my number 6, which I had Ghostface and his knife at number 6.
Ah, the hunting knife.
See, the hunting knife is yeah, it's huge. I just, getting stabbed with the hunting knife, and it's always like in the stomach. It's like almost always in the stomach or in the hand, and that's you're hitting some organs there. But just the idea of how large that thing. I will say it does seem pretty sharp, and I'm happy for it. It looks clean. They clean the blade each time before the stabbing.
That
See, I'm more worried about getting something from these weapons.
No, that's a good point. There's no real backstory to where that knife came from, right? It's not like Billy Loomis's dad was a hunter that we know of. But it is pretty much the same knife used in every edition.
True.
Right? Of all the sequels.
Yeah.
Why I've put it up wicked higher than yours, that's my number 2, the hunting knife, is only because there's nothing supernatural involved about it. And hunting knives versus butcher knives, which is lower on my list, hunting knives are designed for a specific purpose in a way that I feel like other blades and knives aren't. Like the hunting knife, you're going after someone or something specific with them. Like if you are the object of pursuit, you're in trouble. Like I feel like if I had to take on a hunting knife, there was a reason that specific hunting knife was coming after me. It's not like Chucky's not coming across a hunting knife. You know what I mean?
Sure.
He's not using that. A hunting knife is going to be someone skilled enough to know what to do, where to put that knife to really mess with anatomy and psychology.
All right. I hear you. But at the same time, that knife isn't as scary to me because it's very sharp and it's not going to be as painful as some of these other knives. But I hear you on that.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so you said because of how sharp it is, it's going to be less painful.
I think because how sharp and how professional it is, I find it less terrifying than some of the other ones we'll talk about. But this kind of works because my number 5 was Pinhead. And we've already discussed that. So I don't know how much further you want to go into it. I just found that.
Well, for me, it's just the psychology of the killer using a hunting knife.
Okay.
Because there's that sadistic pleasure to using that. You could just use a gun, right?
Right.
To kill these victims, you could easily take them out, but it's the sadism associated with using such a sharp knife that you can use over and over again. And maybe you've been stabbed 5 times before you realize it because it's so darn sharp. Yeah, you know me. The psychology always gets to me.
No, I definitely understand. So yes, my number 5 was Pinhead. I think it's in combination of, and I think I was an extension of Pinhead, the chains, and don't they come like from the darkness and from the shadows? It's very sinister.
It is. And I'm not sure if they've done it in a sequel, but I would be curious to understand their origin a little bit more, because we do have a remake coming out this year of Hellraiser.
Yes, we do, for Hulu, I believe.
So I'm hoping that's going to really bring it and give us
Yeah.
more lore, because as scary as some of those scenes in that first one are, it's a very disjointed film from what I remember, and like convoluted in a lot of ways. And none of the sequels
Yeah.
had any sort of cachet at all comparatively. The first one, has some really interesting performances. That the lead lady is just bonkers.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't remember it being super easy to follow when I watched it 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah, it's
Is that
definitely.
am I out of step
No,
in
I
saying that?
agree with you, and I know there's a lot of the horror community that's really big into Hellraiser and Pinhead and the other films in the franchise. I was never really pulled into it. I think it's definitely worth a watch. Maybe we watch it before we watch the new one and
Mhm.
do a compare and contrast. Yeah, I think it always, when I was a kid, when I first saw it, I think it kind of went over my head as well. I think it was, not written for children. Uh, and that deals with a lot with, relationships and man, just betrayal.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, yeah. I say we rewatch it this year.
All right. Yeah, I would be interested to see if I can pick up on more. Because ultimately, what I took from it is like they maximize the pain, right? For those that they're pulling
Yes.
to
Yeah,
hell.
it's about
The pain
torture. Yeah.
maximizers. Um, but they do it from a distance for the most part, right? Are they ever really getting up in people's craw?
No, I think it's more. Yeah, I think it's left to
They're
the people.
like these holy deities almost, which
Yeah,
to me is not scary. When you're like on a different plane of existence.
sure.
I mean, I don't believe, I don't know. I find even ghosts scary, and I'm not scared by ghosts at all. But
I
the
am.
design, you're absolutely right, is amazing. But their inability to be intimate with the victims is what holds me back on
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
really signing off on
No,
scariness of
I
the
agree.
Hellraiser
I
tools.
agree. So
Well,
that's
interestingly enough, my seventh one, because we've already tackled a few of mine above that, is might be surprising to you, but it's Mr. Krueger's Razor Glove. It's fairly low on my list.
interesting.
Only because I just logistically, granted, he's using these in dreams or whatever, right? But I'm just thinking about like his fingers would have to be really strong to pull this off, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he would need a strength in his hand and his wrist that, granted, he is a groundskeeper and he is raking all the time, and uh, it's possible he's the kitty fiddler or whatever the hell, so he's using his hands too much or whatever, barf. But as a kid, I found them horrifying. And if I was a kid, it would probably be at the top of my list because it was like nothing I'd ever seen before.
Yeah,
Razor
yeah. It
fingers.
was one of the first horror films I've ever seen. It was like my gateway into horror. And if you remember, the opening of this movie is Freddy Krueger putting this glove together. And it
Mhm.
shows you the work and the craftsmanship he's going into this to build something designed so well thought out, but designed to only, give out pain. And they show you like sharpening the blades and putting them into the glove. He thought about it a lot. And I also don't think they're very clean. So
That's yeah. You and your germs while you're being slaughtered.
it's a big concern of mine. If I survive this, do I need a tetanus shot?
You're gonna get COVID-22. Um, yeah, it's definitely scary. For me, it's a logistical thing that holds me back, and I know that's a little ridiculous, but as noted, for me, it's the blunt stuff that really gets me more.
Yeah.
I feel like the way that the wound is it's broader, it's more of a surface wound most of the time. Sometimes he'll get you up the gut,
Yeah, I was just
but
gonna
in a
say,
way, I almost feel like he's been softened by the likes of Wolverine and even Edward Scissorhands at this stage,
sure,
because
sure.
those are lovable figures with
Well,
similar
I
razor appendages.
remember reading somewhere um, when Wes Craven was trying to decide what type of weapon Freddy Krueger would use. He really went back to in history, and like the idea of people using blades, and he didn't want to use like a knife or an axe like other or like killers. But he said he also studied like his cat and would like watch his cat and how it used
Mm.
its paw. And I think it was really designed just by sort of like animal instinct and maybe barbarian, like, yeah.
That's an interesting take. Yeah, no, it is animalistic because it is like an extension of the human nail.
Mm-hmm.
And in a sense, he's claiming his territory in the dream space and to claw his way back into reality in a way.
Mm-hmm.
I see that animalistic nature is there, and that in itself is pretty scary. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Freddy talks too much, but that's part of his charm. But he takes pleasure in the pain
Oh
more
yeah.
than most of these killers. I feel
Yeah.
like
He's very
right?
creative.
He is.
Very
He
creative.
enjoys what he's doing and tries to find those like horror centers of your brain,
Yeah.
in a way that others don't really care about or are unthinking of.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So
in
that was
that
your,
sense, yeah.
yeah, that was your number 4 then. That was my number 4 as well.
Well, honestly, it was my 7, and then above that was the pickaxe, then the axe. And then if we go to my number 4,
Oh,
my number
okay.
4
Gotcha.
is the butcher knife.
Okay. So you're
Mr. Myers of
yeah.
Halloween fame and
Yeah.
his domestic tool of destruction.
Yeah.
Which is really appropriate because Halloween is such like a domestic movie, right? It's all taking place in a small suburb of Haddonfield, and you got babysitters, and you got the kids that they're babysitting, and I just feel like it's such the perfect weapon for who he's going after.
Absolutely. And this is my number 3, so I'm gonna just combo this in here together. But I think the thing that's so terrifying about this is that almost everybody has this in their home. I
Right.
mean, this is something that's you use on a maybe possible daily schedule, and he's using it, and he does it with such force too. But that, going back to the scream knife, I'd much rather get stabbed with the scream knife, because a kitchen knife, it's sharp, but it's also only part of it is sharp, and the rest of it's kind of dull and could break off inside of you.
I see that argument. I do. I guess my only counter to that would be it would be harder to go in and out. Yes, it's going to hurt more going in,
Yeah.
right? But I just think the stealth and the speed of the hunting knife would be so
Yeah.
penetrating, if you will.
Sure. Well, I mean, that's
But
the
you're
idea,
right. You're
right?
right. In terms of pain, I'm with you. I think the butcher knife is going to be much more painful.
Yeah.
And the way he does do some of these like kills, especially in that first one, the guy he gets in the neck where he's hanging on the cupboard door,
Hmm.
that's using the butcher knife to its maximum potential.
Yeah. And the fact that it's a phallic symbol, and that's not just, what with Michael, specifically, who, I don't know, he does not have much of an education. He's only learned really how to just kill. And I think that's why that's something so simple as a kitchen knife is so terrifying in his hands.
Yeah, and to go back to that whole the phallic nature of it, I mean, we could talk about Halloween and what's going on under the skin all day.
Yeah.
But when I think about Michael and his perversion for his sister, right, and then ultimately there's an impotence to him because he has these weird feelings for people he shouldn't have feelings for, so he kind of like shuts out all feelings and he wants to destroy all women. Um, and the women that he's going after are not unlike his sister in that they could have agency, they could be more, but they're kind of relegated to these babysitter roles. So in a way, he's kind of like this uh, feminist warrior in a sense, in that he's telling women don't get destroyed by what the man wants you to be, sort of
Right,
thing.
right,
And
right.
by destroying them with a phallic knife, he's saying, don't go into babysitting. Become like Jamie Lee. Become that final girl. Become something more. Stand up for
I
yourself.
like that.
Yeah, I think you can write an essay about that sort of stuff. And of course, people is meat with the butcher knife,
Absolutely.
and he doesn't eat. Do we ever see Michael eat anything ever?
Never.
Well, in our short living with Michael too, I do think he eats a
Pizza?
sandwich under there.
Oh,
He has a beer too.
he likes pizza. I think we can all agree that Michael Myers likes pizza.
That's right, he does eat pizza. All right, so butcher knife. That was my 4.
Yeah. So
We're getting
And
the
that was
top
my
dogs
number
now.
3, so I might just, kind of throw it back to you to even it out because we've
Yeah.
discussed Michael. Who is your number 3?
My number 3 then would be Jason. I find the machete scarier than the butcher knife.
That's my number 2, so this kind of works as well. It's interesting because I don't know at what point we could argue which iteration of Jason uses the machete, because we all know he's, not the villain of the first movie. In the second movie, he uses that what is it? The pitchfork.
Oh, okay.
And then
Shoot, I
in the
forgot that.
third movie, I think we finally he gets his hands on a machete, and I think it's what he's most associated with, even though he was really skilled with a harpoon gun in number 3 as well.
We don't actually see him in his hockey mask until 3, though,
Correct.
right?
The third movie is where he finds the hockey mask.
Okay.
And
so in terms of cliche thinking about Jason, I think most people will go to the machete.
Yes.
Like, what's on this Funko Pop? It's going to be the machete.
It's going to be the machete, yeah. Although there's also a really good image of him with an axe as well. But yeah, so let's focus on the machete here, because I think a lot of the slashers tend to use the same objects, but what are they most known for? And I think Jason has that machete. And the machete to me is, it's closest thing you're going to get to a sword than instead of using a sword.
True.
And the distance, he's able to, it's like 3 kitchen knives at least. And it's I think in the movies we're supposed to assume it's incredibly sharp, but if it wasn't, it would also be very, very menacing.
Because he has the strength to just put like a sheet of steel through you.
Yeah. And we've seen him stab through beds and doors and through skulls. The force he has coming down with that machete is, just devastating.
Yeah, I completely agree. I find it horrifying. That's why it's my top 3. Just because I think about who's underneath that mask too, and you have this deformed person who is an ultimate outsider, and he just wants to move forward without other people getting in his way, sort of thing. I don't think he takes pleasure in destruction. I think it's more about finding a calmness in his own mind, and when you have other people living a quote unquote normal life around him, that is what drives him to even feel more like an outsider, more crazy, to bring on that rage. And in the way a machete would clear through the thicket as you're trying to like make your way through a jungle, I feel like people are his jungle and he's just trying to clear through them with that machete.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah,
and of course, like everyone knows in the first one, it was his mom that's the killer, and you got Ma in that machete. That's a big stretch, but I tell you what,
Ma newer.
Not mention it.
It's not such a bad word when you think about machete. That's really, really interesting. I've never.
Oh, here's how I put it. He's thwacking through a pathological thicket.
Oh, well said. Well said. The guy's got mommy issues on top of everything.
He does. How did he get into space? That's one I don't remember too well. I know he goes to space.
He does. I think it's because he's frozen or something. I don't remember.
Oh, okay. He didn't stow away.
No, I think they were transporting him or something. I'd have to rewatch. I haven't seen Jason X.
Jason Goes to Space.
Or Freddy versus Jason in a long time.
Fair. It is. And I feel like if I came across somebody that was hell-bent on destroying me with a machete, I'm done. Like, this is why cartels use machetes, because there's nothing more ominous outside of a gun, right? If you want to be like, hey, maybe I won't kill you, I'll just leave you maimed or hack into you, I'll leave you just to bleed to death. The machete, I feel like, blade-wise, takes the cake for me.
Yeah. When
it comes to horror.
I agree. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't even your number 2, was it?
It's, you know what? It's not my number 2. My number 2, my number 1 and number 2 are used by the same character.
Oh.
And that is Old Leatherface.
Yeah.
And the one I find less scary than my number 1 that he uses, which is essentially the first kill that we see him do, is with my number 1 scariest. But what he's known for, of course, is the chainsaw.
Obviously, yeah.
And just, again, we have this people as meat and just the audible control it has over people. As noted, when I go to haunted houses, that is what just rings through me more than anything else. Is the sound. That's why they usually have the guy with the chainsaw at the end to kind of like get you
Yeah.
to go home
Yeah.
now.
Get out of
You're
here.
done here.
He kind of chases you off. Yeah. I think the other thing that's just, well, you didn't mention the other weapon. You mentioned the
Right.
chainsaw, but you didn't mention the other weapon yet. I think
You
the
put that number 2?
no, Jason was my number 2.
Oh,
I think this is just, we'll just go right through it. This is my number 1. I think Leatherface and his chainsaw is one of the most terrifying things in
it
a
is.
horror movie.
The way he handles it.
Oh man, but he does
my
it
God.
skillfully like a butcher. You know, he could either just kind of stab you through it, or he'll take you apart piece by piece. You know, the legs, and then
Right.
it's the sound. It's the, I imagine, you know, he doesn't kill you immediately, so you're witnessing, you're alive for all of this, and
Right.
like I said, it's well thought out, and he's a butcher.
He is putting people on the meat hooks. I mean, that
Yeah.
sticks with me. As I've told you before, that original Texas Chainsaw to me is the scariest movie
Yes.
I've ever seen.
Yes.
Like, that's why I'm really wondering what they're going to do with this new one coming out, because
Yeah.
the one, was it with Jessica Biel? Did they remake it? I know
They remade
one.
that one in about 2003, I believe.
And that was pretty good too.
Yes.
I mean, it didn't have the chops that the first one did, but I still found
it
it
was
pretty disturbing.
Yeah, they captured that essence of it. And I think they did one in 2006 as well. But you know, up until they relaunched it, and with Jessica Biel, they did some really goofy stuff with Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, and then the one they did with Matthew McConaughey,
Yeah.
which was just kind of like a joke. It wasn't even scary. So I think those were.
There was one with Renee Zellweger too. Was she in the same
that's
one
the
as
one
Matthew?
with Matthew
Okay.
McConaughey, and I think those were huge mistakes to, you know, kind of put Leatherface in the backseat for a long time until they, you know, he's getting his resurgence now. And I don't know if you saw the movie Leatherface, which was the origin story.
I did see that.
Yeah,
Yes.
which is you know, we get to see him as a kid, and the things that happened that set him on this course of becoming a murderer and becoming more and more like his family. Is
A
also
cannibal.
Yeah.
Well, that's you know, that's what I wanted to talk about, is ultimately Jason's like a death machine. But
Yes.
Leatherface is almost like rooted on. It's almost like a sport for him, because you have his crazy maniacal cannibal family that's rooting him on.
Yeah, they let
from the
him loose.
rafters.
They let him loose, you know, like,
And he doesn't speak. Everyone else in his family is pretty chatty, right?
Yeah.
But ultimately, the chainsaw is his raging voice, and it's the only way that he seems to be heard with such an overbearing family.
And then
And they're all inbreds too, which I
Yes.
find interesting, because when I think of Leatherface, it's that iconic motion of where he's like dancing with the chainsaw in the air, right?
Yeah.
And to me, that points to like the mutant nature of his identity
Yeah.
too, and like just like it's an aberration of sorts. I don't know.
And the fact that he'll wear your face at the end of the day.
that too, that in itself is almost a weapon.
It's
That's
very sick and
psychological weapon.
disturbing. And I'd love to know, and I'm sure they've done probably, you know, making ofs, but I'd love to know why, or did Toby Hooper, did he come up with the Leatherface first and the chainsaw, and then, you know, decided to call it the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? Or was it, this is the title, so my villain has to have a chainsaw? And I just love to.
That's a really good question.
Yeah, I'd like to eat a chicken before the egg.
Friday the 13th was just a title before it was anything.
Right. Yeah, that was.
They just put an ad, and that's how they got back. It was just an ad in the paper saying Friday the 13th coming soon, but there was no script, no nothing.
No.
And just the name alone got people on board.
Yeah, and it was a bandwagon thing. Like we saw John Carpenter's success with, you know, a small funded indie horror film. We want to do the same thing. Yeah. But this was
Leatherface
before those.
takes the cake. Here's one thing about Leatherface, though, is I feel like of these top 3 or 4 that we're talking about, I feel like I could trick Leatherface. I feel like I could dupe him, get away from him in a way, maybe. Like, I don't feel like he's as relentless as a Jason or a Freddy or even a Michael. I feel like Leatherface might be like, all right, I missed out on this slab of meat. That's not a big deal.
Yeah, it seems like he really only has that talent for cutting things up, whether it's a actual pig or it's a human.
The butcher, not the hunter.
Correct.
Totally.
Correct. Yeah.
But that being said, my number one is the instrument he uses before he busts out his iconic chainsaw. And that's the first death of Texas Chainsaw. And that's when he comes out just with a hammer.
Yeah, when the
door
opens
comes out through the door and gets who we thought was going to be our lead protagonist male right in the head with a hammer. I think it was maybe 3 quick strikes, blows to the head, and then just drags him into the house. That's that. It was just so quick. And as noted before, that the blunt instruments is just like, that is something that somebody could crack in a minute and you're gone. They just take one hammer blow to your head. That to me is horrifying.
Yeah.
Beyond a chainsaw. Because you can hear the chainsaw coming. A hammer, you ain't going to hear.
That's very true. And it's much like a slaughterhouse, you know? They're just like a quick
good point. Like a bolt gun.
Yeah, exactly. Quick shot to your subject, and then you eat.
Oh, and the way that the character just like is twitching and stuff, it just sticks with me to this day. That is one of the most horrifying deaths.
Yeah, a hammer. Yeah. A hammer to the head may not kill you.
I think it'd be hard to avoid too. If someone's coming after me with a hammer, I mean, even if I put up my hands are then broken.
Can't really block that. Much like a chainsaw, you can't block a chainsaw.
That's a good point. My hands are gone versus broken.
Yeah,
that's a good point. But okay, let's dip into something a little more classic now that we've gone through some of these mainstreamers, and let's go through, what is it, MGM's big classic monsters? I think they have the rights to most of these characters.
No, Universal.
Universal does.
Although MGM did also create a lot of classic horror during that time, just not the Universal monsters.
Fair. Okay, so outside of the mainstreamers, we're going back to some of these classics, and we're going to talk about their means of destruction and where they sit with us and why they potentially use that. First one we're going to talk about is Frankenstein.
Yeah, I mean, Frankenstein, much like your Leatherface, is just, just a force to be reckoned with. You really can't do anything. You might be able to punch him and hit him and kick him, but it's really not going to slow him down like you could, like maybe a Ghostface, for example. Ghostface takes a lot of punishment too, but Frankenstein,
he feels pain.
Yeah,
I'm not sure Frankenstein.
Well, Frankenstein's monster. Sorry.
Yes, not Dr. Frankenstein. That man feels serious pain.
Monster doesn't feel anything. He's a reanimated corpse.
Well, he deals with considerable emotional pain.
Right,
if you ask
he's
me, and that's really what gets
clown face emotion.
He's jealous of actual human life.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not like his dad. Who's his maker? Dr. Frankenstein doesn't know who his maker is, and then he makes Frankenstein. He's like, what am I? So, I mean, I kind of feel for him. What I associate the most with him is he chokes. Maybe that's the cliche thing you see Frankenstein doing. Is that a little choke? Yeah. And that to me is just like that's your means of life right there. You're not
he could just
jealous,
bop you on the head, much like the hammer Leatherface uses. His hand is like a sledgehammer,
as Mo has often done to Curly.
Yes, it's one of those exactly like that. Just a clunk to the head, and you're down.
Come on, Frankie.
It's exactly like that.
It's like, plus you can outrun him, so I'm not super scared of Frankenstein. I feel like he kills people with a purpose too. He's not just killing willy nilly.
Yeah. If you're trapped in this castle or something, you're screwed. But not as scary to me as Dracula. And mostly because we're dealing with a genius, but
true.
Teeth is something we didn't really talk about with these other iconic slashers and killers. Teeth and tearing flesh might be as bad as getting stabbed, if not worse.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think it goes in all that Freddy department in terms of animalistic.
Yeah.
And then like he needs to do it in a way. Frankenstein, you piss him off, he might take you down. But Dracula, your death is his life, sort of thing. The predator versus prey becomes a stronger, sharper being by taking you out and desanguinating you.
Right.
So, Dracula and vampires in general, but especially Dracula because he does have all that knowledge and wisdom. And at this point, would he be like 500 or something, right?
Yeah.
So, he's going to beat you at trivia night.
Right. At least he'd wine and dine you first.
That's true. He is good at that.
He is.
He's good at literally buttering you up.
Excellent
Before he...
host. Excellent entertainer. Just poor bedside manner.
Well, speaking of teeth, the other big dog literally is Wolfman.
Yeah.
He's also using tooth and nail, though. He's bringing them both in.
This is someone you can't outrun. And a werewolf, not just the Wolfman, is, I mean, I don't think you can you can't outrun unless you're in a car, perhaps, but there's really no escaping the werewolf.
No. And it kills indiscriminately. I mean, yeah, it might kill you because it's hungry, but I think if you come across it, it's going to kill you just territorially because it's a dog, you know?
Right.
And that in itself is scary.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, to me, like being mauled by a wolf man is up there with a chainsaw.
Yeah, like a raptor, it's going to eat you while you're alive.
While you're alive, yeah.
That's not fun.
Now, one of the other classic monsters on here is the mummy, which is probably the least. This is like our Chucky, like one of the least scary things. I mean,
hey, you haven't met my mom. It can be pretty scary. Yeah, what do you associate with the mummy in terms of how the mummy takes down its?
I don't know. I think this is more of like a bigger issue here. Like, are people racist? I mean, look at this is like historical. Like, this is a whole culture that they've turned into a monster. The idea of wanting to just live into the afterlife, the mummification process. Hollywood turned it into this thing where it's a monster. Like,
interesting.
It must have kind of stemmed from some sort of like, well, not in our religion, you don't.
I can see that. But like, I can't really remember the mummy. Like, it can manifest bugs and stuff, right? It can summon.
Okay, if you're talking about the 1999
with Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz.
Yeah, if we're talking about that mummy, the powers of that mummy are completely different than the Universal monster movies, which was almost like a zombie, but with no real desire to eat your brains. I think it's more of just another strangulation situation here.
It is kind of the OG zombie mummies.
Yeah. It's, the undead. However, if we're talking about the 1999 mummy, the calling of the cicadas or whatever those were, and the basically controlling the desert. Yeah, that's pretty terrifying.
Weather. That's right. Yeah, right. Yeah, but I'd rather take on a mummy and its ability to blow wind over a wolfman's jaw any day. But interesting, when I was doing a little research, oftentimes when mummies were discovered, literal mummies, it was the fungus that would actually kill the people that discovered their tombs and stuff.
Right, like if they opened it up,
hacking up blood.
And the release of the gas that was in there too.
So, interestingly enough, mummies are the only one on this classic list that have actually killed people.
Right. Well said. Yeah. So some other monsters on there too that, like the creature from the Black Lagoon or the Invisible Man don't really kind of hold up either as far as like all that scary. Sure, the remake of the Invisible Man they did, a year or two ago
was awesome.
Yeah, and they really showed just the terror behind not being able to see somebody and being stalked, but doesn't really have a weapon except their bare hands.
Right. Yeah. And then in terms of the sea monster, creature from the Black Lagoon, is he just drowning people?
There's that. I think he also strangles. This is a time in Hollywood where if you got caught by a monster, that was scary enough. So just being in the hands or fins of a creature was the worst thing that could happen to you. So I think you just got strangled after that.
So just as a little tail ender here, we're going to, I mean, it's very, very tragic, but some people in real life have passed away via instruments of death that you would never expect. And we're not going to get into the grisly tales. We're just going to kind of tell you about some of these weapons you might not have suspected could be used to take somebody down. One that really struck me was a microwave. Granted, I'm reminded immediately of how Stu dies in Scream. Like a
Oh,
microwave, I guess, could fall on somebody's head, but
it's
a
true.
microwave. And then, of course, there's that movie, The Willies, where they microwave the dog. But
There's an actual movie called The Microwave Massacre, which is just
my gosh,
nonsense.
really?
So don't even get me started on
Gosh.
that one. However, yeah, really, really bizarre way to go. Not something you want on your tombstone.
One that's on this list that actually I don't find that bizarre is a toilet lid. I feel like I've seen a lot of people die via toilets
Getting
over the
whacked.
years.
Yeah, it's a
Yes,
blunt.
their head gets in there, and then
Yeah.
it's dish, 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 dish with the toilet lids. That's believable.
What
I could
about
see that happening.
what about the pumpernickel bread?
Pumpernickel bread. I'm assuming there was poison in it, or I'm not sure.
No, they found a massive lump on the back of the man's head. So one is only to believe that the pumpernickel bread has gone stale and was used as another blunt object.
Wow.
I imagine it
That's
being
bringing me
thrown
back.
like a football.
In a high school play I was in, The Miser, we had baguettes used as some of our weapons. We actually had to get a new baguette every night and thwack each other with them. So they can be deadly. I've seen
Okay.
it in real life here. I just run through some of the other silly ones. Sweatpants has
That's
apparently killed
disgusting. That
a
is
person.
disgusting. I mean, were they clean sweatpants?
Some of these are a little obvious though, like a frying pan, of course,
Yeah.
that has taken somebody down.
Yeah.
A guitar string, any sort of string, right?
That's pretty terrifying.
You see that a lot. A pickle jar, I feel like that's just another blunt object.
Yeah. What about the dessert spoon?
The dessert spoon is interesting. So I'm trying to, there's like one of those little baby spoons, I take it, for like pudding or creme brulee. A little tappa, tappa, tappa.
Yeah, but the story is even more bizarre. It's like the person was hit in the back of the head with the dessert spoon, much like I imagine you like were to crack an egg.
Crack an egg.
But I don't know if
Whoa.
it was just something else was going on because they had hit the person and the sudden impact ruptured an artery.
Oh my goodness.
Don't hit your brothers and sisters with dessert spoons out there.
Yes, and don't run with scissors. That's been used apparently. And one of the main reasons I very rarely work out is because a man was murdered with a dumbbell once. And I'm scared of that happening to me.
No, thank
too.
you. Stay away from gyms.
But I think we've talked a lot about murder weapons.
Yeah, and I cannot wait to see what we get out of this new Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I'd like to believe that's going to be our next episode if we can figure this out.
Yeah,
I am very excited, and
yeah, it might be interesting to compare the first to the remake
Right.
of Beale to the new one coming out
yeah,
next week on the 22nd, I believe it. Tomorrow, right? Or am I crazy? No, it comes out
that would be
next week.
the 18th or the.
Oh no, you're right. It comes out tomorrow.
It comes out tomorrow.
Depending on when you're listening to it, it would be today.
Yeah. So we'll be able to talk about that next time. And so I hope you did not get your fill of chainsaws. There'll be more chainsaws to come.
And then I don't like to do this, but on the 22nd, that's why that's in my head.
There
The
you go.
22nd, me and my bandmate, Mr. Josh Kirkland, out in Colorado, we are releasing our 5th album with our band Compudactyl, and this is it's better than the rest of them. We've invested pretty seriously in mastering and some serious plugins. You wouldn't believe it.
So tell us where can we find that and listen to that?
So that'll be on all the streamers, Spotify, Apple iTunes. You can buy your own digital copy on Bandcamp if you want, but it'll be on all the streamers. So if you just put in Compudactyl, and the new album is called The Porpoise and the Boar.
Very cool. Very cool. I thought you were going to say the porpoise and the boy, and I was like, oh, what a tale! What a tale to be told.
It's a little
very
play
cool.
on like purpose and boredom, and
I think that's
ultimately
fantastic, and I will definitely be listening to that.
much appreciated.
You know what? We'll link to it from our social feeds as well. So enjoy that, and we'll probably catch you before that with our Texas Chainsaw Massacre episode. But if you're listening
Stay
to
alive,
this,
people.
yeah, stay alive.
I was thinking about using that one. What do you think? You like
Stay
that?
alive.
Stay alive.
Mostly so you can hear the next episode and tell your friends.